Jordan Love a little bit. Personally, for me, like I mentioned earlier, I thought that Joe Burrow was head and shoulders the best quarterback in that draft class. Nothing much to talk about there. But I said that even over Tua Tagovailoa, I would probably draft Jordan Love. And I know that Tua's probably, if he's healthy, probably more ready to start right away than Jordan Love. But I'm all about your potential, And I know I talked about with Herbert, the lack of floor, I should say. But I just see a guy that's a great natural thrower of the football. He has the arm talent. He's mobile enough to make plays off schedule. Like I said, he's just a natural at that position. He makes some throws that some NFL quarterbacks can't even dream of making, in my opinion. And as a Packers fan, I was kind of disappointed in the direction our team is going in. Not getting Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver, not going after Patrick Queen to improve the run defense. But, I think that Jordan Love's gonna hit. I really do. He's gonna sit behind Aaron Rodgers. The main issues I had with him is that he didn't get off his first and second reads very well. At times, poor decision making. If you sit behind Aaron Rodgers and learn, I think that you're gonna get better at those things. I think the Packers are a pretty darn good organization. So, talk about Jordan Love and where you had him ranked among the quarterbacks this year. And do you think that he's in a pretty darn good situation in Green Bay? And what are Packers fans getting if Jordan Love really hits?
Yeah, I had him as QB4 in this class, behind Jalen Hurts. I also thought he was a second-round pick. We love the athleticism. We love the arm talent. As a decision-maker, he's better than Justin Herbert, but still, I think, not as good as Tua, not as good as Burrow. Probably about the same. I think he and Jalen can have some of the same issues in terms of decision-making at times, but I still think Jalen's more consistent, and he's certainly more accurate. My main problem with Jordan is, for whatever reason, fades, he really, really struggles with in terms of layering the ball in outside the numbers, down the boundary. And just kind of throwing fades has always been a huge issue with Jordan Love in terms of placement and timing and everything like that. And that's a throw that you have to be able to make at the NFL level. And for the last 2 years, he's really struggled with it. He can hit everything else. It's just fades in particular and go routes that he just really struggles with down the field, outside the numbers. And so I think that's something he's going to have to work on the next couple of years while he's sitting behind Aaron. That is the main reason why I don't think he's ready to play right now, is because that's a throw you have to have in your arsenal, especially in this offense where they like to run slot fades to Adams so much. Like, you have to be able to do that. And he's just not ready. So, again, in terms of everything else, yeah, I like him. But until he fixes that one throw that he hasn't been able to make the last couple of years, he's not ready to go.
Gotcha. I do think that Jordan Love is not quite ready to play right now. I said that he needs to sit for about a year or two, so I do agree with you there. And hopefully he's the next great quarterback in Green Bay, because, man, Brett, I gotta tell you, I know that you've been through a lot as far as being a Houston Texans fan the last month or so, but, man, I want to get your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers really quickly. Obviously, the Packers go 13-3, go to the NFC title game. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is quite the best quarterback in football anymore. I still think that he's an elite quarterback, and I think the Mahomes and Russell Wilson are the two quarterbacks that are just playing above everyone else. Then you get to battle it out with, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees, and even Tom Brady. I still think Tom Brady is still a pretty darn good quarterback. His football brain, IQ is very good, but I think that Aaron Rodgers still has to be somewhere in your top five. But the last couple of years, the Packers' offense has kind of stalled a little bit, and he had to deal with the whole Mike McCarthy issues. I think that Matt LaFleur was still adjusting as a first-year head coach. I don't think his second-half adjustments were quite that good. But, Aaron Rodgers, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. That's still pretty darn good. And that's considered an off year for Aaron Rodgers. What do you see as far as Aaron Rodgers on film? Is he still an elite quarterback? What has been going on with the Packers offense the last couple of years? We talk about how they have Devontae Adams, but who else? Alan Lazard. They had Geronimo Allison. Marcos Valdes-Scantling didn't quite, play up to par this year. So kind of talk about where Aaron Rodgers is right now as far as a quarterback goes. Because honestly, I got to be honest with you, Brett. I want to go all in. I want my team to win a Super Bowl. I would much rather win a Super Bowl and maybe miss the playoffs a couple of years rather than being just relevant and then having nothing to show for it. I just really wish that the Packers would have went all in and got Denzel Mims, maybe got a Patrick Queen, but they're moving towards the future. So kind of talk about the state of the Packers and how Packers fans should feel as far as Aaron Rodgers goes right now.
I don't really have any concerns about Aaron personally. We can say it was a down year, I guess. Really, I would just say I wish he was a little bit more aggressive. I feel like he was a little bit more conservative than we're used to seeing. But in terms of accuracy and everything like that, I didn't really think he was regressing physically. I just kind of want to see that aggression that we know and love from Aaron, especially when he's out of the pocket, come back. And maybe it was maybe a little bit of discomfort with a new system and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a lack of trust in his receivers like he used to have with, Jordy and James Jones and all those guys. It's a different crew. And maybe if he had a little bit more trust in people not named Devontae Adams, we would see that aggression. But in that kind of harkens back to everybody being so upset they didn't take more receivers in the draft. Here's the thing, though. This draft was clearly Matt LaFleur trying to emulate his teacher, Kyle Shanahan. When we look at what kept the Packers out of the Super Bowl, it wasn't necessarily Aaron having a problem, it wasn't necessarily the receivers having a problem. It's an easy scapegoat to have, sure, because they fell so far behind, but look at how they fell so far behind. They got absolutely demolished in the run game. Jimmy G over in San Francisco really had to throw barely any passes for the last two games leading up to the Super Bowl because their run game was so dominant. They ate clock. They kept the defense fresh. They beat the Packers into submission twice that year. And those were the two most embarrassing losses they had all year. It was getting beaten into submission with the run game. So look at what they did. They took A.J. Dillon, who compares semi-favorably to Derrick Henry, same kind of build, similar kind of play style, not quite as slashing, but a little bit more of a power back than Henry. Or when I say power back, I mean capable of running in power runs, whereas Henry's a little bit more of a zone guy. So they took him, who Matt LaFleur just watched Derrick Henry, a former player under him in Tennessee when he was in Tennessee. They just watched him carry the Titans to the AFC Championship. So okay, let's go get that kind of guy. They took Josiah DeGuara, who was a tight end / kind of fullback, H-back type player who they're going to move all over the place and be their Kyle Juszczyk, who is a huge factor for, I'll say it again, the San Francisco 49er. They want to run the ball with A.J. Dillon. They want to run the ball with Aaron Jones. They want to get DeGuara involved both as a blocker and as a receiver in a Kyle Juszczyk type role. They have a quarterback sitting behind Aaron who they like, who they can develop, who they know is not ready to play yet. They're not emphasizing wide receiver in those first three picks because they didn't feel like they needed one. Because what did the Niners have at receiver? Emmanuel Sanders as their number one. They didn't have Devontae Adams in San Francisco, and they still rolled the Packers on the way to the Super Bowl. So they don't consider that position to be ultra important to get to that promised land. When they're seeing other teams do it without great receivers. They're building to emulate the Niners. They're not building to piss off Aaron Rodgers. And maybe Rodgers was mad because Rodgers is used to having a ton of wide receivers, but this is the reality of what they're doing now. This is what the offense is. It doesn't prioritize the wide receiver position. It prioritizes the backfield. And he's going to have to get used to that. And if he does get used to that, guess what? They can probably go to the Super Bowl because the Niners just did the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that if the Packers get a top 5 run game this year, and let's be real, Aaron Rodgers has to carry this team for a long time. He really has. So what are they doing now? They're running the ball more. They don't rely on Aaron Rodgers as much. People talk about his lack of touchdowns this year. I will point to a philosophy change in the Packers. So I 100% agree with you. I said in my episodes that they are trying to become the 49ers and build their team kind of like that. Kyle Shanahan back in Tennessee and back with the Rams had a lot of 2 tight end sets. I like Jay Sternberger. I think that DeGuara, I don't think that he's necessarily an explosive player, but I do think there's versatility there. He has pretty good hands, so I think that he can get open a little bit. And, A.J. Dillon's a bruiser. I think my Packers are going to really love that pick in the cold weather in home games, hopefully, late in the season. And, again, if they can become a top 5 run game and Aaron Rodgers and the defense plays better than they play versus the 49ers, then that's a pretty darn good football team. I think they're still the class of the NFC North. Kind of talk about the Packers draft because, let me actually shift to this. What was more the Packers' problem as far as their run defense last year? Because honestly, you had a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, had a great run game in Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams is great. The one weakness of the team last year was their run defense and getting bullied by physical teams, the Chargers and the 49ers. So was it a schematic issue? They brought in Christian Kirksey this year, to hopefully be an upgrade over Blake Martinez. Kollmann Martin is the guy that they drafted out of Minnesota. So how can Green Bay improve on their run defense? Do they need better players? Is it a schematic issue? Kind of talk about the holes as far as the middle of their defense, and are the Packers getting better at those things, with their new philosophy?
It really was a problem with the second level. Kenny Clark is a beast in the middle. Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith both set really nice edges outside. But, if you're occupying all of them with blocks and then saying, okay, we're going to rely on Blake Martinez to get in the right spot at the right time and make a good tackle. I understand that Martinez has a ton of tackles, but when they're all 6 to 7 yards down the field, who cares?
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Never mind the fact that he wasn't great in coverage either. So, you bring in a guy like Kirksey, you draft a guy like Kollmann Martin, guys who can just get in the fit. And by in the fit, I mean in the run fit. Be in the right spot, attack blocks with the right leverage, help out your defensive linemen. Just do your job. That's all they need. Blake Martinez, if he is doing his job and having those 100-plus tackles actually matter, then he would still be in Green Bay, I guarantee you, because that was kind of their one weakness. So I understand he's a good fantasy player in IDP leagues, but in terms of real football, those tackles were not effective.
Yeah, I totally agree with you right there. So I want to kind of shift to, thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.